So I always like to share with you what's being reflected back in my universe, or as Robert Edward Grant says, U-inverse. I like that. The U-inverse is and it really got loud yesterday. Still the idea of separation, the perception of separation, and how humanity is doing our best to come into a unified perception, hence the term U-inverse. And I hear the echoes. Clearly, this is something that my subconscious is working on. I'm working my higher self, my soul, all my little fragmented aspects of myself. My internal self is helping my conscious human self to shift this. So the feedback that I get from people that I see around me is, and one of the key phrases that I heard multiple times throughout this week too, is the path of an empath. The empathic nature is, I have a challenging experience being around others because I'm very sensitive to energy. And when I'm around others, I can pick up their emotions. I can pick up their energy, and I can then confuse their energy as if it's my energy. So if I'm around somebody who's sad and they're not aware of the depth of their sadness, I, as an empath, will empathize with that. An empath wants to help others, and I will just magnetically pull their sadness into my field, into my body, as if it's almost pathogenic, and take it on, and then my mind and my emotions become confused as to, is that my sadness or is that somebody else's sadness? I used to clearly be in that perspective because people used to ask me for a long time, well, when you're working on people, okay, as a body worker or doing energy healing and body work, when you're done working on them, how can you tell if you have not picked up on their energy? So I used to say, well, I can feel when it's an energy coming from external compared to an energy that's coming from internal. And it's true, when I'm around people, I can feel if an energy is coming off of them. Like, okay, so say I'm doing, somebody has paid me for a psychic reading, and I will suddenly feel their liver is on their right side and it hits my left side if we're facing each other. And I will literally feel a left side, just like a thunk or a little tug. And I know because I'm sitting across from this person that they have a toxic liver. It comes from without, and you do have to be discerning in that sense in order to really tune in to the frequency of, is this an energy that's coming from out here in here compared to something's coming in from my right hip if I'm dealing with issues from my masculine, or something's coming from my left rib cage if it's something I'm dealing with my feminine. It's coming from in here. I have enough awareness to be able to discern between outer energy coming in and inner energy coming up for awareness. Yes. But now, when I hear others say, well, now I feel sad that I was with this group of people, but I can't tell if it's my sadness or if I picked up on others. My whole being now goes into this perspective. What's the difference? Why are you unaware of your own emotional state? Are you holding on to sadness that they literally reflected back to you that you need to bring up and process and release? Why are you perceiving yourself as being separate from others when we're all different expressions of one particle? What does it matter if you were with a group of people and they were sad and then you come away and you feel sad? Or you were with a group of people who were really angry and very judgy and now you feel really angry and judgy. It doesn't matter if you perceive that anger and judgment as that was all of theirs. I'm separate from them and now I've magnetically picked it up. They have this huge effect on me. I'm ungrounded. I don't have any control over my emotions. And so anyone that I'm around, I literally am influenced by and I become them. Where's your grounding? If you feel angry when you're around angry people, then you have anger within yourself that they're reflecting back to you that you need to experience and release. I've changed my perspective on this role of the empath. And I have to say, it's actually been quite enlightening. Mm-hmm. Like, oh my gosh, that whole perspective of I'm an empath, I'm around people, I've now picked up on whose energy was it? It's all separation consciousness. And I realized just recently, I've had a really big shift in perspective of coming more into this U-inverse, this unified consciousness. You've been pivotal in that for me because, you know, before we were living together again as you're a young adult, I was very much in that. And anytime I would share things like that with you, you would always immediately give me your perspective, which has always been a unified perspective. You've had a unified perspective for many, many years. You really started coming into a unified, which doesn't surprise me. You're born into all this Aquarius, that you're the generation that you are, but you were always present, even starting in high school. When you were in high school, you were sharing with me a much broader, grander perspective and saying, I don't think it's that. This is how I see it. And it's like, my 16-year-old just said that. My 19-year-old just said that. My 22-year-old just said that. And then it's like, and you make it just so simple and logical. It's just this. And then it's just like, well, I just see it as this and this and this and this and this. And you walk off to go do something else. I got to go do my laundry now. And you walk off and I'm like, this is why I had him. And then I'd make statements like this. Thank you for not coming through Nana, but coming through me.
I got you.
And then you do that. I got you.
Yeah. Well, yeah. That realization that you're talking about is, it was pivotal in helping me overcome the same illusion that I was also stuck in, the exact same thing.
I'm sure I influenced in helping to teach you that too from the time you were little. That was definitely something that I was always sharing with you. Oh, very much so. I had a strong influence in like, well, we're empaths. And so when we go in a room, make sure that if people's energy come on you, you know, I learned from a Reiki master long ago when you were still in high school. I traded with him, lovely, lovely person, amazing healer. But I asked him, what do you do when people's energy come on you? And he's a Cancer Leo. And he was so funny. He got super fierce with me. And he goes, Sonia, you never take on people's energy. You send it to your plants. You send it to that Himalayan crystal salt lamp. You send it to the walls. You send it outside the window. That's arrogant. You never take on other people's energy. It's their energy. It's their responsibility. It belongs to them. You hold the light. You hold your own energy. You are sovereign. And that had a big influence on me. That was like really important. It was like, oh, that's really good. And he got fierce. He's like, you're not their God. You don't take on their energy. And I love him and I appreciated him about that. But now I've even taken it to an even deeper perspective. You can even transcend that.
But I also think that he was actually saying the same thing. It's just that you weren't in a place where you could interpret it in that way at that time.
He probably was.
Because I interpret from my perspective now what he said. I think that means virtually the same thing.
Yeah.
To say that you are not their God, because he's speaking from ego to ego. So he's like you as an ego, you can't assume that you have the power to like take in and
but
have
he
all
actually
of these
was
things.
Saying that too.
No, exactly.
and he did say those words too. He's like, you're coming from ego.
That's what he's saying.
Yeah.
Exactly. So ultimately it's yet another sort of balancing act, because you have to sort of treat your ego and God consciousness all as one thing, but then also sort of move through it with nuance, which is where being in a state of flow or being in a state of emptiness really helps, because you don't have to think or plan or like try to do any of those things so much. A lot of the nuance will sort of reveal itself to you over time. So when you're actually like, you have to dive in really, really deep to other people's emotions in order to be able to actually understand how you are unaffected as an ego consciousness from their separate ego consciousness, which seems counterintuitive, because the ego says, I want to remain separate from this person and this identity, but you actually have to become one with God consciousness first, so that you can understand that the source of everything actually doesn't hold attachment to any of those feelings or things that the ego gave so much importance to. And then once you can remove the importance from those labels, then you can really start to sort of assess and move through the nuance of this emotionality that we have as human beings with a little bit less attachment. It becomes more of a detached ideology. And that's really where the help in being an empath, if you want to label yourself as that, that's really where it becomes something that you can actually use to help other people. Because I find that most people nowadays, when they hear the word empath, they think that's annoying, because when they hear empath, the number one connotation goes to, oh, this person's like whiny and they can't be around people and they're like
hypersensitive. They're too sensitive. I have to walk on eggshells around them.
I'm an empath. Like, that's the connotation now, And it's like,
true.
I see how they got there, to be honest with you, because people have been using that as an excuse to stay in victim consciousness for a very long time.
That's it.
Yeah.
That's it. People have been using it as an excuse to stay in victim consciousness for a long time.
Absolutely.
That's it. And so I have to hold boundaries when I'm with people. I have to keep myself separate. I have to remember that I'm different. I'm special. I mean, not everybody goes through that, but some people do.
My energy is fragile like a flower, and it must be protected.
Yes,
and like,
I'm a sensitive.
Unless I want to vent at you, and then you're supposed to take everything that I say without any questions. Otherwise, you're not being a good person. You're not being a good friend to me and my pain. But as soon as it comes to me, no, I'm a precious little flower. I have to
Some are, and
myself.
I know that's extreme. Some are like that. I actually have met people like that. I have too. I have had clients like that. I know. Not everybody's like that though. But when I decided to change my perspective on what an empath is, because it's not the easiest thing for me to go into a crowd of people. It just isn't. I do better if I am teaching a class, a workshop, a seminar. Way better. If I'm holding a group hypnosis. If I can guide people, and it's the leader in me, and be more in the front and center and helping people and facilitating and serving, I do better. I did notice that when I used to be at the big yoga studio in Portland, which is now closed, and we had some of the master yogi teachers coming in, teaching us workshops on advanced yoga practices. And advanced meaning we're going to work more on pranayama, breathing, and we're going to really focus on group hypnosis. And we're going to do some deeper chanting. We would sit in a large group. I mean, the studio then could hold 108 people. That was the fire code. We would pack 108 of us in, and we're all in the same intention. We're all empaths. We all are. A lot of those people are my clients. We're my clients. And the master teacher, she or he is there. It was usually a woman. And we're all seated. We're all in lotus position, or we're all in Sukhasana, easy pose. And we all brought a cushion with us. And we're all there, 108 people together. She can barely fit. She's standing up against the wall, and she's guiding us. And we're going through breathing techniques, and we're doing Om as a group. Profound. Om as 109 people is profound. And I noticed that all of my hypersensitivity dissipated. One time, this particular master teacher had us. We had a new studio that we'd moved over in a different moved over to in a different building. The fire code was higher, and there were 150 some odd people in there, and we did the same thing. This was the very last time I did this with this group. She had us the same, sitting in Sukhasana easy pose, sitting on the floor. We had a little cushion underneath us. There were so many of us in there. At first, many of us thought that we were going to be overwhelmed. We weren't overwhelmed at all. We felt total support. And then she did this really great thing that she learned from another master yogi. She had us all, where exactly we were sitting, she said, now we're going to experience group support. I told you about this when you were in high school. She had us all lay back exactly where we were, very delicately put hands back. You're going to start touching other bodies behind you and around you. Lay back, lay back, lay back all the way. Don't move your body other than to lay back. Let your head just gently go back, and you're going to lay on the people around you. It was probably one of the most profound experiences I'd ever had. Let your arms open up your heart. You're completely supported by everybody around you, and everybody was supported. The people on the outer rim weren't laying on anybody behind them, but they were the support of the outer ring. And we were all in a circle. So we were creating this sacred geometry. And then we had a professional photographer there who was one of the yogis, and she had her get up on a ladder up on the ceiling, was really high, and take a picture of us, and it almost looked like the flower of life, sacred geometry. And she had us lay there, and then she said, now I want you to put your left hand on your belly and your right hand on your heart, and we're going to lie here, and we're going to Om together. And we Om'd for a long time. And we were all crying. It's like almost 160 of us crying. We felt total support. I didn't feel any of that empathic hypersensitivity. My victim went away. All of that, because this was in, 2013? So I had a lot of victim going on then. All of that went away completely, and I felt so held and so nourished. And we were all just laying there. We didn't want to get up, and she's like, "No, whenever you want to get up." None of us wanted to get up. We were all laughing.
So I actually, now that when you say this, I think that this is a really good experience to highlight the true nature of the empathic state.
When you feel supported.
Well, the true nature of the empathic state, and I'm talking about the empathic state that like you're talking about in the beginning of the podcast, it is actually a trauma response that you build as a child, which is why empaths usually have troubled histories with either their parents or authority figures or some bullied situation or whatever it is. It's having to navigate a situation in which you felt as though individuals that were supposed to support you were volatile, and therefore having to gauge their emotions before they necessarily came in. That was built in me because of James. It was built in you because of your father.
Because of Papa.
And so it's
and my brother and sister as well, because they're both empaths. And, he was the terrorist. And it was scary. And we all didn't band together necessarily. We all ran off individually and hid in our own spaces. Is what we did, is exactly what you guys did too with James. And I feel like that is a classic empath beginning of life. You
have to be able to realize this to actually transcend it. I don't find myself in a place of that same emotional sensitivity anymore. And I don't really look at it as being like this super strong gift or anything to have that, because 9 times out of 10, what it actually did was limit my ability to interact with other people.
Absolutely.
And so what actually I find now is that I have the same ability to like be able to look at a person and be like, oh, they're feeling this, or oh, they're feeling that, but there's no ambiguity behind it anymore. It's not like, I'm feeling this way. Oh, let me put out my feelers. Who around me is feeling this way? My psychic senses are telling me one of you is in pain. No, it's like that person's got trauma that she's working through. That guy's got trauma that he's working through. She's doing a pretty good job. He's not doing such a good job. I could tell the vibes that he's putting out. I could tell what she's putting out. I could tell what I'm doing. I can tell every little nuance of how I interact in the conversation with somebody else, and like what it is that person said made them feel a certain way or made me feel a certain way to do that. There's no mystery behind it. It's like all these little details of every little emotionality that you can navigate in life. They're all been revealed to me because I'm not attached to them. And as a result, I actually have choice. I have choice as how I can navigate conversations, and I can have a choice as to like what I put out, how that might affect another person. I can choose to be more aggressive. I can choose to be more reserved. I can choose to be more empathic and more like emotional in the way that I talk to somebody. I have choice in all of that stuff now, whereas before I was being guided by my fear of triggering somebody to do the wrong thing that would put my child in danger.
Absolutely. Yes. And I witnessed your transformation of that, coming from a space of hypersensitivity to, no, you know what, I need to own this. You came into a space of owning it. I did the same thing. You know what? I think a lot of it shifted for me when we moved to Peru in autumn of 2016. When I got there, I kind of threw out all of that because I was in a new country, and it was very exciting, and I wanted to dive in and experience it. I'm not one to hold back. I really forgot about that whole EmPath's manifesto, really, is what it is. I threw out that script. I think it just happened. I wasn't even consciously aware of it. I was just being myself, and I just wanted to help people. I wanted to experience, I wanted to help people. So, I mean, I worked on so many people, and I taught so many yoga classes in Peru at 4 different places, and met so many people, and was speaking a language I didn't really know, and bad Spanglish, and Google Translate helping me, and meeting people from all over the world who spoke a million different languages. And it was just like, how can I help you? How can I help you? I did have one guy who had a healing session with me who didn't speak English very well, and through Google Translate asked me, how do you do this work without taking on other people's feelings and energies? And I remember saying to him, you know, I'm just so bright. It really doesn't affect me. I'm really grounded in who I am. And I'm just here to give my light to people and help you to realize your own pain, your own path, own it, own who you are, take responsibility for your own energy. I do that. And I mirror that back to you. So when you're working on all these people after all these sessions and teaching all these classes, you don't feel exhausted at the end of the day? No, why would I? I've been giving of myself, and the more I give, the more I get. And he was like, you have to teach me how to do this. And so I gave him a few sessions. He was from, I think he was European. And he was only there for a week. He was doing ayahuasca ceremonies. And he said, you know, I'll have as many sessions with you as possible. He was front and center at all my yoga classes before he went back to his home country. And he said, how do you do this? And I said, you just find joy. Just enjoy the moment. Just enjoy what you're doing. Enjoy how you're helping people. Enjoy all of it. Don't think about when you're with somebody, you're taking on their energy. You just get grounded. Be grounded. I gave him some physical techniques too, like be barefoot as much as possible. And, you know, he was all concerned about that. And I said, you have a lot of fear. You need to work through your fear. Like, what are you fearing?
Yes. This is why you have to do your shadow work.
Yeah, you do.
You're not going to be an effective... I don't really know a better way to say this. You're not really going to be an effective member of society if you cannot do the work to like unravel all of your past trauma and all of the stuff that's holding you back from being in a position where you can give of yourself. Because if you can't give of yourself without like everything being taken away, you're just a battery that's broken. You're depleting every time that you're trying to like do something. It literally is. It's going to kill you. Like you're going to die and you won't have done anything.
Well, and you're also taking people around you that love you down with you as well.
Exactly.
You're affecting everybody. That goes back to, what is it that you're putting out there?
Mm-hmm.
How are you affecting the collective field? Because there's an energetic field. How are you affecting the field? What we say affects the field. Mm-hmm. To become in the now, to become really conscious in the moment, to let go of your victim is to really, truly slow down, breathe, and be aware of what you're putting out there, because it's going to be mirrored back to you. I'm not perfect at it. I'm not always conscious about what I'm putting out there. No, but I'm definitely so much more aware of How am I affecting people? I have a really powerful energy. I walk into a space. I now am realizing very much by seeing the result of when I walk into a space. I walk into a public space. I know I'm affecting the field. I can feel it. I can see others respond. What am I putting out there? Am I putting out peace? Am I putting out joy? Am I helping to neutralize the energy? Is there a lot of heaviness and discord in this space? I can always tell. I feel like the power of the empathic person to continue to use that label in order to help people is, as an empath, you're going into a space, you're around people and you're aware of the frequency. You talk about being able to name, this person's doing their work, this person's not doing their work, this person's angry, this person's grieving. It is just a natural state of being human to be able to sense that. And so if I'm walking into a space and I sense that this woman is feeling so and so and so, and I start getting psychic information off of her, which is just natural, it just comes off of her. The first thing that I naturally do, if she and I are going to interface, if we're going to have a conversation, is I'm going to find a compliment for her. It's just natural for me to do that. By the way, I just wanted to tell you, you have the most beautiful hair. Thank you so much. I've now made a ripple in her field. Now we've started to bring a higher frequency in. Have people told you that before, that you have great hair? Oh my gosh, yes. Oh, well, I just, just to brighten up your day. You have amazing hair. Thank you so much. I really needed that. I'm having a horrible day. Oh, you are? Well, what's going on? Oh, such and such and such. And then the victim comes out. Yeah, but what's beautiful about your life? What's positive about your life right now? Do you have great health? You've got great hair. What else can you focus on? These are little conversations that I have with people. This is how you can change from going from the victim empath to an empath who is serving the energy in a way that raises the frequency and brings healing and joy.
Well, I was
going
to say, I think that what you said about finding joy really, really connected with me. And I think that for a lot of people who maybe view themselves as being more reserved and weak and have a difficult time getting out with people, I think that finding joy is really where you should start. Really identify what it is that you're called to do. What is it that you really want to do, but maybe feel as though you can't right now? And then go into, well, why can't I do those things? Because that's going to be a way to get into those traumas that have been buried, that are withholding that state from just being your natural way of being. Because you go out and you give people compliments because it makes you feel good in order to be able to share your perspective with them in this way.
It does. I'm a person, number one, who's naturally optimistic and joyous. Number two, I do it because the number one thing, and I was born this way, I remember being a toddler and doing this, I really want people to feel supported. I want to serve people with support.
There was a time where if you had done that to someone and they had responded with something really negative, that maybe would have caused a negative downturn on your emotional state.
Totally.
So what switched?
I got tired of focusing on the negative. I got tired of the cycling of it. It was looping. When we're negative and we judge, we loop. And I got tired of hearing my own criticism. I got tired of hearing my own judgment. I got tired of the same experience.
So
I was like, I am so done with, I could hear it coming out of my mouth, and I could hear my inner self going, you need to stop doing that. You're not helping anybody. You're not helping anything. You realize you're creating your own difficulty whenever you say that. It's like, I know. It's just like when I used to eat junk food when I was a teenager, and it was like, you need to stop eating that. It's making you feel bad. I know, but I don't know what else to eat. It was the same thing. And then the solution was coming from within. Literally, universe is going to always give you signposts of a more loving way to behave, to live, to eat, to breathe, to sleep, everything.
Yeah.
Universe is always going to give you these signposts. Universe, if you are negative, if you're judgmental, if you're unhealthy, Universe is not going to keep you in that. Your ego is going to keep you in that. But universe is always going to give you signposts on how to do something that's more loving, because universe is loving. Always will. Whenever I ask people who go, I've had people who are atheists come to me for sessions and super negative and no, there's nothing and da, 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 da. And yet they keep coming back, and I say to them, what have you been seeing recently? What signs have you been seeing? I don't know. What do you mean signs? And then I'll give them examples, and then they'll go, yeah, like I see a lot of numbers, 666, 333. That's significant. Is it? And then we correlate. Then we have to connect. What were you thinking of when you saw these numbers? How were you feeling right before you saw these numbers? And then there's little glimmers. There's little cracks in there that I can make and say, that's connected. That's significant. And then after a while, I ask them, notice these patterns in your life. Some people do come back and have consecutive sessions and say, you know what, you're right. Like I couldn't deny the logic of that. They're literally, I was thinking that, and then I did see 333. And I noticed I felt better. The feeling is key for people to shift. When I say something negative, I notice I feel bad. Mm-hmm. When I say something positive, I notice I feel better, and the feel better like pulls me in. It draws me in.
I remember when I was at my lowest state of this sort of like the empath victim, and I was really struggling to connect with other people, because when I would get into conversations with people, it may start out really good, but the moment that they said something that I could interpret in a more negative way, I would interpret it in a more negative way. And I didn't realize that I was putting that perspective on it until I actually was able to step back. But the reason that I actually was able to step back is because when I would go home all sad and dejected, and I would be all mopey and like thinking about like, well, maybe it's like I'm just, maybe I'm just like super introverted and I just like can't really hang out with people. I just wasn't satisfied with that. Mm-hmm. And it was that dissatisfaction that really was the shift for me. I was like, every time I would come to that conclusion, I came to it again and again where it's like, well, I'm just not the greatest socially in this. And I was like, that does not satisfy me as an answer. And as I learned over time, because I then started to really study all of this stuff, personality mainly, and psychology, and when I really dove into these things, I actually learned that personality is totally malleable. Mm-hmm. It is a completely changeable mask that we wear. You can change like your personality every single day.
You can tweak it. You can mold it. You can bring out more positive.
I gave this example to one of my friends the other day, and this is something that like does work, and it people don't really think about this, but you can actually teach somebody who has who is a psychopath. You can teach a psychopath to have cognitive empathy, meaning that they are aware that when they say something, it has an effect on the other person, and they can then use their mind to rationalize what that effect is, and therefore make different decisions. You have to teach them this, but this is a way for them to develop like the idea of what empathy even is. Yeah. And there are people who have antisocial personality disorder who are walking around, who have gone to therapy and do go to therapy, who are like, yeah, all right, they have to navigate the world in a totally different way, but they have figured out now, just from this self-reflection, that they can change this part of themselves that used to be unconscious. The poking and prodding and the brick wall and the manipulation of others and all of that doesn't have to be an unconscious thing for them. It can be something that they understand about themselves, and therefore that understanding gives them the ability to create change, because it's not like we are born one way and we are just that way forever.
Nope.
We are actually affected by a lot of different like events in our lives, and we take in and take in and take in. The subconscious has no way of shutting things off. Right. It only takes in information.
It only takes in information, and it makes the decisions.
What you you then have to do is you have to teach your conscious mind to work in tandem with the subconscious to then filter in and out the things that are going to be helpful or not helpful to you. A lot of times the conscious mind, it sits sort of as like a lazy sort of, it's like somebody watching a TV show, you know, and that's like what the ego serves as for most people. It's just kind of like, oh, let's flip through that and that and that and that, and you know, and so you're not really, the subconscious mind is just taking in and in and in, and the ego is not really regulating anything. It's just kind of letting it all happen. And so then you're just kind of like in the state of being like, oh my God, you're just reacting to everything. Everything that's coming in is reactive information, you know. But if you want to stop reacting to stuff, you got to realize that all of this stuff, the conscious, subconscious personality, this actually is an illusion. It's not really who you are at all. It's just a mask. And so once you look at it from that perspective, everything is changeable, especially if you are like the majority of people who don't have like deep horrifying trauma that like goes way down to their core, like I was, you know, tortured as a child or something like that, you know.
But even that has been, there are people that have come,
that's what I'm saying is like
yes.
if you develop a serious personality disorder from something like that, even that can be changed.
Even that
so I give that
changed.
example to give people hope, because this is a real thing that actually happens in cognitive behavioral therapy, where if these people do go to therapy, they can see real changes in their personality. All it takes is them being the active participant and learning what information to filter in and without, and it's their choice. It's what they want to do. It's all your choice. What do you want? Do you want to constantly be reacting to other people taking in their information?
I know, or do you
or not?
Do you want to take responsibility for your energy? You know, one little last piece of this, I've had many people throughout the decades ask me, after giving them an astrology reading, can I change my astrology chart? And I say to them, it's not about changing your astrology chart, your natal chart. It's about emphasizing the aspects of your personality that's the most loving. I said every zodiacal archetype has two different sides, two different nuances, and you're here to experience all of that. You're in Aries, and you're experiencing the arrogance of Aries, the narcissism of Aries, the you know, just overbearingness of the Aries, the bully. Flip it. Experience now the visionary, and sharing that with others and taking action in order to serve humanity, in order to lead humanity into a more loving space. Use your mind to serve people instead of taking from people. Do the opposite. The ego will take. The soul will give. The higher self gives. So come out of the ego aspect of astrology and go into the soul and the higher self aspect of astrology. And you're going to notice a huge difference. It's the same thing. As an empath, go from the taking, which is the victim, into the giving through your empathic nature, and notice the effect it has on your life and others.
Thank you so much to everyone who listened to this week's episode of the podcast. Feel free to check us out on Instagram at One Long Conversation to get some updates on our future episodes, our future content. You can also follow us on Patreon and become a member. We have a lot of interesting and awesome perks and cool ways to connect with us and our community that we're forming there. So go over to Patreon at One Long Conversation, and you'll find us there. We also have these episodes going out on YouTube now. So if you go to YouTube, yet again, at One Long Conversation, you will find video versions of these episodes. So yeah, thank you so much. We'll see you next time.